Good morning, everybody. Chester Irby Church Devotional Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. As we get started, we'll be in Genesis chapter 21, the story between Sarah, Hagar, Ishmael, and Isaac. We'll be back.
Gives me grace for every trial. Feeds me with the living bread.
All right, well, thank you so much for being with us this morning as we read Genesis chapter 21, the story of Hagar, Ishmael, and Sarah and Isaac. And it starts with Isaac having been weaned from his mother's breast and Abraham holding a great feast for Isaac. This is what we read in chapter 21 of Genesis. The child grew up and was weaned, and Abraham had a great feast on the day Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son mocking, the one Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham. And so she said to Abraham, "Drive out this slave with her son, for the son of this slave will not be co-heir with my son Isaac." This was very distressing to Abraham because of his son. But God said to Abraham, "Do not be distressed about the boy and about your slave. Whatever Sarah says to you, listen to her, because your offspring will be traced through Isaac. And I will also make a nation of the slave's son, because he is your offspring." Early in the morning, Abraham got up, took bread and a water skin, put them on Hagar's shoulders, and sent her and the boy away. She left and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she left the boy under one of the bushes and went and sat at a distance, about a bowshot away, for she said, "I can't bear to watch the boy die." While she was at a distance, she wept loudly. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What's wrong, Hagar? Don't be afraid, for God has heard the boy crying from the place where he is. Get up, help the boy, and grasp his hand, for I will make him a great nation." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well. So she went and filled the water skin and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy, and he grew. He settled in the wilderness and became an archer. He settled in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother got a wife for him from the land of Egypt. Now let's stop right there. And this is the story of how Abraham sends Hagar and Ishmael out into the wilderness at Sarah's request. Abraham and Sarah have the son Isaac. Isaac is weaned. Abraham has a great feast for Isaac and a great party for Isaac, and is delighted to be able to do that. While he is doing that and during the party, Sarah sees Ishmael mock Isaac. And we can understand that sibling rivalry, especially in a situation like this, right? Ishmael is Abraham's son. He is Abraham's son through the slave girl Hagar. This was a plan concocted by Sarah, but yet after Hagar conceives, she and Sarah have this bitter rivalry. Sarah has the heart of Abraham. She is the rightful wife of Abraham, so she forces Abraham's hand to push Hagar and Ishmael to the side. And so the new baby's born, and all this fuss is over the new baby, and the son, Ishmael, is going to mock the baby. We can understand that. He's going to mock the child, right? 2 or 3 years old, he's going to mock the child. That's what children do. That's what young boys do. They mock each other. And so we can see the jealousy coming out here. Well, Sarah gets really angry, and she forces Abraham's hand again and tells Abraham to send Hagar out and to send Ishmael out from the midst of the family. Interestingly here, Abraham does not want to do it. In fact, Abraham is torn up about it and has, in a sense, refuses to do it. But then God calls to Abraham and says, "Listen, I'm going to take care of Hagar and Ishmael." There are 2 things here I think are important. Number one, we see God stepping in and making his promise to fix and to take care of the situation that Abraham and Sarah had created. Abraham and Sarah decided to do things their own way, and in doing things their own way, they created a mess for themselves. Now, we all have a tendency to do that. That's the reality of sin. We want to rebel and take matters into our own hands and do things our own way. And when we do that, we oftentimes find ourselves creating messes. God steps in and is going to take care of this. But God also tells Abraham to send them on their way, because God knows there's 2 things that are very important. God knows, one, that Abraham and Sarah raise Isaac better, and it's better for Isaac to be raised in a family with Abraham and Sarah without the competition, without the rivalry, without the disdain for Ishmael and Hagar. And so God allows them to raise the child in their family, and he is going to bless them accordingly. But God also knows that it is better for Hagar and Ishmael to be in his hands in the wilderness so that he could take care of them and make them into a nation than for them to stay in the home with Abraham and Sarah and so deal with the scorn of Sarah and the disdain that would come from being there. You see, it's hard for us to process. It's hard for us to get our minds around, but we note here in this story, I believe what God is revealing to us is God is saying it is more important for someone to be in my hands and better for them to be in my hands than for them to be in a difficult situation where they'll have to deal with scorn and brokenness and misery. Now, they go off and they have to come to the bottom of to the end of their rope, as it were. And it must have been a terrible situation for Hagar to think about her son thirsting to death and dying in the wilderness. But at that moment, God reveals himself to her and God saves them, and then God continues to work with them. And so we note here that God is a God of grace. God is a God who works with his people. God is a God who who gives grace upon grace to his people, works with them, provides, and meets them where they are. And so maybe I'm a little off on that. I don't think I am, but I think those are the things that stand out to me as I read this text. Hope you guys have a great day. God bless you. Trust the Lord. Know that it is better to be in his hands than in any other position that you could possibly imagine. Take care. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.
You carry